Natasha,
Debbie,
show.
the show.
Welcome to it. Just two patriotic girls.
Learning about the world.
So please, don't take us the wrong way.
Hi, welcome to the Natasha and Debbie Show.
Welcome to another special edition of the Natasha and Debbie Show, which we consider all of our military episodes to be a special edition.
Absolutely.
So before we do anything else, to any active members and veterans watching of our allied military services out there, thank you for your service. That is the highest honor we can bestow upon you, and we hope that you take that with the sincerest, genuine love of which we give it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And also, if just really quickly, because it's stupid, hit the like button if you can. Thanks. Appreciate it.
And also consider subscribing.
I was waiting for you to say it.
It's absolutely free.
So what are we watching today?
Today we're going to watch the first American awarded the Victoria Cross.
That's a big statement right there.
That is huge.
Today's episode has been done by the History Chap. And as a favor to the Natasha and Debbie Show, we would appreciate it very much if you would go on over to his channel. Now we've put his original video link in today's description of ours. Please go and subscribe to his channel. Chris is a nice guy. We've spoken to him through email, and super nice guy, really smart. He's got a lot of great videos to check out, and we'd love it if you go give him a subscribe and a hi from the Natasha and Debbie Show. But yeah, we know that the Victoria Cross is the highest honor given. And
Yes.
you were going to say?
A lot of people have asked us to watch Jeremy Clarkston's video for Valor on the Victoria Cross.
Yeah, and the greatest rate of all.
And we have already seen that, so we wouldn't be doing a reaction on here with that because we did see it a while ago.
We've been asked that about probably more than any other video to do, but we watched that before we even started the Natasha and Debbie Show. Just one night, YouTube came across it. And so that's why we've never done it, because we don't want to fake a reaction, and we're not going to fake a reaction. So we've already seen it. It's been forever ago, and I don't remember much about it. But that's why we've never done that episode. But we really, when we saw this episode pop up, it really caught our attention. And we really want to learn about the first American award of the Victoria Cross.
Absolutely, we do.
And we'd like to know if you know about this person. So without any further ado, I think it's time to get into this video and finally learn who it is, what happened, because I have no idea.
Did you know that in its 170-year history, the Victoria Cross, Britain's highest medal for valour, has been awarded to 5 Americans?
5?
4 were members of the Canadian Expeditionary Force during World War I. But the very first American to receive the VC was serving in the Royal Navy at the time of the American Civil War, in a tiny and forgotten act.
Whoa.
In the American Civil War.
Whoa. Okay. 18 seconds in, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what?
Intriguing.
Shockingly, fascinatingly awesome. Okay, and weird. Intriguing is the perfect word. I should have just let you have that one. Okay.
Serving in the Royal Navy at the time of the American Civil War, in a tiny and forgotten action in Japan. This is the story of that man, William Seeley, and the bombardment of Shimonoseki in 1864.
I don't know anything
William
about that.
Seeley was born in the town of Topsham in the state of Maine on the 1st of May 1840. He seems to have spent his youth in the nearby harbours, and after a family argument while still a teenager, ran away to sea. In his desperation, he boarded the first ship he could find, which happened to be a British-owned merchantman called the Salem. His travels took him to China and the British colony of Hong Kong. And there he fell out with the Salem's captain when the latter refused Seeley permission to let off firecrackers on the vessel to celebrate American Independence Day.
Sorry.
Jumping ship, William Seeley soon spent up what little money he had and now found himself stuck in a British colony far from home.
That's because he wanted to light some firecrackers to celebrate our independence. That's hilarious.
That is pretty funny.
This video is a minute in, and I'm in love. Chris, sir? Wow.
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Spent up what little money he had and now found himself stuck in a British colony far from home and flat broke. He decided that the only way out of his predicament was to join the Royal Navy and signed on as an ordinary seaman aboard HMS Euryalus, which was stationed there in Hong Kong.
I guarantee you, they won't let you light some firecrackers for Independence Day either. Sorry, I'm done.
The year was 1862. The wooden-hulled, screw-propellered frigate HMS Euryalus had been launched in Chatham in 1853, just in time for the Crimean War. During that war, the 35-gun Euryalus saw action in the Baltic campaign. There she participated in the bombardment of the Russian fortress at Sveaborg in modern-day Finland. Following the war, she headed to the Mediterranean with Queen Victoria's second son, Prince Alfred, serving on board as a midshipman.
Wow.
By the time William Seeley was signing on in 1862, HMS Euryalus, minus Prince Alfred, had been posted to the Royal Navy's China Station.
Okay.
There she was part of the British military effort to stamp out the Taiping Rebellion in China. This uprising against the imperial government in Peking, or Beijing, lasted for 14 years. The
Jeez.
civil war and resulting famines cost the lives of an estimated 20 million Chinese.
Not surprised.
The British contribution was as much based upon protecting their trade in China as it was propping up the imperial government per se. It did, however, result in a British Army officer commanding part of the Imperial Chinese Army, Charles Gordon. His exploits were to earn him the nickname back in Britain of Chinese Gordon. And it was Chinese Gordon who would end up besieged by the Mahdi in Khartoum in the 1880s. And I've done a fair few talks about that subject. Check out my playlist at the end.
Well, I feel-
Anyway, back to William Seeley, who incidentally claimed in later life he'd met Gordon whilst in China. By September 1862, he was sailing on board HMS Euryalus for Yokohama in Japan. The island nation had only opened her borders to foreign trade 10 years beforehand when the American, Commodore Matthew Perry, had arrived in Yokohama Bay. And since then, American merchants have been joined by various Europeans, all intent on taking advantage of the new trading opportunity. But not everyone in Japan welcomed the arrival of the Westerners, partly because they threatened traditional Japanese values, and far more importantly, they threatened traditional feudal power structures.
Okay.
Local lords, or daimyos, held autonomous authority and had historically been able to do their own thing. Now the emperor, who for hundreds of years had been a bit of a figurehead, was starting to flex his muscles against the shoguns who had tended to wield the real power. And it was the dynamics in this changing power within Japan that formed the backdrop to the film The Last Samurai, starring Tom Cruise.
Oh.
In 1863, the daimyo of the Chosu clan, Mori Takachika, unilaterally decided to take the initiative against the foreigners by denying them access to his territory. This included closing the narrow Shimonoseki Strait to their shipping. Despite the fact that Mori was no fan of Western influence undermining traditional Japanese culture, or his power, he was more than happy to use foreign weapons against those very foreigners. So, whilst most of his artillery batteries overlooking the strait were antiquated cannons that fired cannonballs rather than shells, he did also possess 5 modern Dahlgren guns.
Really?
Designed by American Admiral John Dahlgren in the late 1840s and early 50s, these guns were nicknamed soda bottles due to the shape of their muzzles, and were being used extensively in
I
the
knew
Civil
that.
War that was raging in America at this very time. Mori's 5 Dahlgren guns could fire their 8-inch shells over 2,000 yards, which was more than enough to cover the narrow straits. He also had a small navy to enforce the closure too.
Dang.
His fleet included 3 American-built warships, the 6-gun Daniel Webster, the 4-gun Koshin, and the 10-gun Lanrick, by now called the Kosi.
This is why we don't know about this, is during the Civil War, we were, taught that.
Yep.
Well, something else going on over here. And I mentioned this just recently on a Patreon video we just did. If you don't already know this, more Americans, the Civil War in America was just brutal. If you don't know, I'm not trying to be condescending by any means. Civil War was absolutely brutal and disturbing, really.
Yes.
More Americans died in the Civil War than every other war combined. Combined.
Yeah.
That's just... Wow.
The 25th of June 1863, Maury's fleet attacked an American merchant ship, the SS Pembroke, in the Straits. Somehow the captain of the Pembroke managed to outrun his pursuers, suffering only minimal damage. The following day, the French naval dispatch steamer, Kren Chan, was fired upon by Maury's artillery. Badly damaged, she too managed to turn about and sail away. But unlike the Pembroke, the French crew had suffered 4 casualties. Protests were submitted to the imperial government by both nations' senior diplomats in Japan. The traditional shogun leadership were keen to appease the Western nations. But as I said earlier, the local feudal lords, like daimyo mori, were effectively laws unto themselves. There was a lull for a few weeks as the central government tried to negotiate with Mori to reopen the strait. Then on the 11th of July, the 16-gun Dutch warship, the Medusa, decided to force her way through. With more guns than any ship in Mori's navy, her captain was confident that he would be unopposed. And in one respect, he was right. The local Japanese fleet stayed away.
In one respect.
However, as the Medusa sailed through the narrow waterway, the shore batteries opened up. 30 shells and cannonballs hit the Dutch warship, and 9 members of her crew were either killed or wounded. The shocked captain returned fire and increased speed to clear the strait before he succumbed to any more casualties.
And?
Now things started to move quickly. 5 days later, 16th of July, the American warship USS Wyoming arrived on the scene to retaliate for the attack on the Pembroke the previous month. In a 2-hour battle, the Wyoming had to endure a bombardment from the Dahlgren guns, which had ironically been presented to the Japanese as a gift from the American government.
Nice.
To add to the irony, the Wyoming then proceeded to sink 2 of the American-built ships in Maury's fleet. 4 Americans.
Hey, that's a lot of irony.
And
Yeah, it
another
is.
died built ships in Maury's fleet. 4 Americans were killed in the action, and another died later of his wounds.
Jeez.
On the 20th of July, the French Navy now arrived, intent on extracting revenge for the attack on their ship, and opened.
This is this is a lot.
It's like everybody's taking their turn to try to get in there and
Get back at
Take
them.
it down.
Yeah, this is insanity. And Chris, you give man, you have me on the edge of my seat here. I could listen to you reading the telephone book and be going, okay, do the S's now. This is intensely cool. And if you guys are liking this episode, please hit the like button. And again, in the description of our video, you'll find the link to Chris's original video. And please sub to his channel because this is phenomenal.
In the Straits by force. This French intervention consisted of 2 warships and 250 Marines, who landed and proceeded to destroy a village and one of Lord Maury's gun emplacements.
Oh.
However, this action on behalf of France had not been sanctioned by the government in Paris, but by their senior diplomat in Japan. Already embroiled in a war in Mexico where nearly 40,000 French troops were committed, the last thing Emperor Napoleon III wanted was a war on the other side of the world.
Yeah, I would think.
The diplomat was reprimanded and would be recalled to France within the year. You have to hand it to Daimyo Mori. This local Japanese lord had taken on the French, the Dutch, and the Americans.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Simply refused to back down. And for all their bombardments, the Western powers didn't have the resources to take him on. For the next
Isn't that
year,
crazy?
the straits remained closed.
That's insane.
They remain
2
close.
months after that last bombardment, in September 1863, HMS Euryalus, complete with ordinary seaman William Seeley, arrived at Yokohama.
Okay, what's going to
En
go down
route
here?
from China, the British warship had also seen action against another feudal lord in Japan in what became known as the Anglo-Satsuma War. Nothing to do with small oranges, and I'll tell you that story in future in my members channel. So why not sign up for the members channel at the end of this
I'm
video?
thinking about it, Chris.
Next year, the Western powers negotiated with the imperial government, who in turn negotiated with Mori. And whilst the negotiations seemed to run into a brick wall, Mori was busy destroying foreign property in his domain. Meanwhile, a growing armada of Western naval vessels arrived in Yokohama. Eventually, after Mori had failed to acknowledge, let alone comply, with the British-led ultimatum, that international armada set sail for the Shimonoseki Strait. The fleet consisted of 9 Royal Navy ships, 4 Dutch Navy warships, and 3 French naval vessels.
Jeez.
They were accompanied by 2,000 soldiers drawn from all 3 nations. This allied fleet was commanded by British Admiral Sir Augustus Leopold Cooper, commander of their East Indies and China station.
Well, I should just go ahead and call this the First World War II. Right?
Probably, yes. I mean, this
World War One. Sorry, World War One. My brain was somewhere else.
is pretty big action going on here.
Good Lord. How did this not erupt into that?
I know.
Well, I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
Cooper, who had joined the Royal Navy in 1823, decided to make HMS Euryalus his flagship. The notable absence in this fleet, based upon the actions of the previous year, were the Americans. Rather like the French in Mexico, the Americans had bigger fish to fry than getting tangled up in a war in Japan.
Yeah.
Whilst keen to ensure that the Japanese markets remained open, President Lincoln was concerned that military involvement in Japan could deflect both army and naval resources from his fight with the Confederate States in the American Civil War. Actually, they weren't totally absent from this Allied fleet. An American chartered steamer, the USS Tarkian, had sailed with them to show solidarity. But then there was another American connection, wasn't there?
William.
Somewhere in the 500-strong crew on board Admiral Cooper's flagship was ordinary seaman William Seeley from Maine. On the 5th of September 1864, the fleet sailed into the Shimonoseki Strait, and HMS Euryalus led the bombardment of the shore batteries, her 17 Armstrong guns sending 110-pound shells into the Japanese positions. By nightfall, all of Maury's batteries had been silenced. However, overnight, the defenders managed to repair their batteries, and the following morning they opened fire on the Allied fleet again.
Wow.
It was obvious to Admiral Cooper that he would need to send men ashore to capture and destroy the gun emplacements. It was now that William Seeley had his moment in history.
Okay. Is it just me? Tell me, are you guys feeling the same way? I'm like, what's he going to do? What's going to happen?
I'm on the edge of my seat. Like,
I mean, to get the Victoria Cross, like, where's this going?
Yeah.
Okay. This is fascinating. This is one of the coolest history videos I've ever watched.
Mm-hmm. I love the way he's telling the story.
Yes. And the visuals are perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm excited.
The 24-year-old was a member of the 3rd Company of the Naval Brigade as they went ashore to capture the gun batteries. As they advanced inland, they started to encounter stiff resistance. Eventually, they reached a stockade held by troops loyal to Lord Maury. His commanding officer, Lieutenant Edwards, asked for a volunteer to make a reconnaissance of the Japanese positions. Seeley stepped forward. All by himself, he slowly worked his way through the undergrowth to observe the stockade from close range. It was manned by over 300 men, and Seeley could make out light guns on top of the 8-foot palisade.
Wow.
Suddenly he was spotted by the defenders. Running as fast as he could, he raced back to safety, chased by the Japanese, some in samurai armour, some firing arrows, and some firing muskets.
Stop it.
It was only when he reached the British lines that he realised he'd been wounded in the left arm. Nevertheless, he made his report, and based upon his observations, Captain Alexander of the Euryalus planned his attack.
They could get in.
Despite being injured, William Seeley armed himself with a naval cutlass and joined in the attack. The attacking naval brigade advanced under a storm of arrows and musket shots. Captain Alexander fell, having taken a musket ball to his ankle. As he lay on the ground, ordinary seaman Seeley rushed over.
Of course he did.
Even though he only had one useful arm himself, he managed to carry his officer back to a medical post. Refusing any aid for himself, he now rushed back to be in the thick of the battle. The attack was making slow but steady progress. 18-year-old midshipman Duncan Gordon Boys had been assigned to carry the colour into action. He was guarded by 2 senior NCOs acting as colour sergeants. The defence was so intense that one of these men was killed, and the other 29-year-old, Thomas Pride, was severely injured. Pride staggered to his feet and continued to advance with midshipman Boys until ordered by their officer to retire. Grudgingly complying with the order, it was only afterwards that they realised the colour itself had been pierced in 6 places by musket balls.
Wow.
They'd probably had a narrow escape. With the naval brigade now closing on the stockade, the defenders simply melted away, although about 20 stayed to fight to the very end. By the end of that day, the 6th of September, sailors and troops from the Allied ships had seized all of Lord Maury's artillery batteries. Many were blown up, although some guns were taken away as prizes. In fact, the guns taken by the French can still be seen at the Hôtel des Invalides in Paris.
Oh, wow.
The Royal Naval Brigade lost 7 men killed and 26 injured storming the stockade. Many of the British injured were treated on the American steamer that had accompanied the fleet. 2 days later, the local Japanese forces surrendered. A peace treaty was negotiated in which the Allies would receive an indemnity of $3 million.
Peace is good.
The bombardment of Shimonoseki is a pretty much forgotten event in history.
Yeah, I never
It plays a small part in a much bigger story that was taking place in Japan as the country moved on to the world stage. It also falls into the story that surrounds that change as the traditional semi-independent feudal nobility clashed with the imperial authorities for political control of the nation. 3 Victoria Crosses were awarded to men participating in this action.
Oh, wow.
The first 2 were to the survivors of the Colour Party, Midshipman Boys and Thomas Pride.
Nice.
The third was to William Seeley for his bravery in his solo reconnaissance and then joining in the fight despite being injured. He was the first ever American to receive Britain's highest medal for bravery. Somewhat bizarrely, he received this British honour for a forgotten action in Japan, whilst many of his compatriots were fighting each other in the American Civil War. Seeley left the Royal Navy in 1866 and went back to sailing merchant ships before retiring to Massachusetts. In the next 20 years, he would twice have his VC stolen from him. On the first occasion, it was anonymously sent to the British government in London, who forwarded it on to Seeley. The other time, Seeley reclaimed it after seeing it 18 months after the theft, for sale in a curiosity shop in America. William Seeley VC died in October 1914 and is buried at Staunton, Massachusetts.
Okay.
He is yet another one of those Victoria Cross recipients who seems to have been almost lost to history.
Well, not anymore.
Rather like his Victoria Cross, because amazingly, it's gone missing for a third time.
Oh my.
It was in the possession of his granddaughter in the 1930s.
That dude needed a safe.
Yeah.
He needed a safe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was good at a lot of things, but not keeping things safe.
Yeah, I'd say chain it to him, but I don't think that would work.
Well, not now. He's dead.
No. Even back then,
kidding.
come on.
Well, I mean, okay. You're saying this is his granddaughter?
It's gone missing for a third time. It was in the possession of his granddaughter in the 1930s, and no one knows what's happened to it since.
Huh.
A vanished VC, earned in a forgotten battle, awarded to a forgotten American sailor. And yet, when the records are read and spoken, William Seeley has his place in history.
Yeah.
The first American
does.
to be awarded the Victoria Cross.
Wow.
That was absolutely fascinating.
I could have watched that for another 2 hours
Mm-hmm.
with some popcorn.
Yeah.
And just like sat here and just listened and just watched it. It was intense. It was educational. It was, I don't want to say, it's not entertaining. I don't want to say that. There's a different word I'm looking for, not entertaining. Help me.
Kept you involved.
Yeah, just
engaging.
I don't know.
Engaging
It was phenomenal, fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And pride. I feel a lot of pride for that. You know?
Yeah, I mean, what an amazing human being.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I mean, American
being
or
chased
whatever.
with samurai.
A human being. I know.
Like wearing samurai armor.
That is so cool.
And arrows and stuff. And he gets hit and he's like, I'm going to go pick up my officer now. And even though I've got like
Help
one arm,
him.
I'm going to go back in. I mean, dude was a badass.
Go back in and kick some more butt.
Yet he couldn't keep his medal.
Yeah.
You know, I've known people that are now passed that have had medals from like World War II and stuff that they cared for them, of course, like, you know, emotionally that it meant a lot to them. However, it was more of the humbleness and also not wanting to be attached to war.
Exactly.
Not wanting to be attached to war. So maybe he just didn't want to keep it someplace in a safe area for that purpose. If you guys like this episode, even a fraction as much as I know I did, and I can tell you felt it.
Definitely did.
Please hit that like button. Consider subscribing to our channel. And again, I'm going to ask you one more time to please go to the History Chap. That's Chris. Chris's channel in the description of ours here. You'll find the link. And subscribe to his channel because if you haven't already, now you know why you should.
Absolutely.
That seriously is now my favorite history video we've ever done on this channel.
Yes.
Honestly.
It was just such a good story, and I just loved it all.
Yeah,
like you said, Chris tells a really good story.
Yeah.
And
he's a nice guy.
He is. Before we go any further, again, we want to say thank you to anyone in the military.
Yes. Thank you for your service.
Yes, thank you.
This was, yeah, I don't know. Him telling stories like this is what keeps these like you said, it's a forgotten man, forgotten time, but it keeps their stories alive, keeps their legacies alive, and that's important. Sharing that, putting that out there. So thank you, Chris, History Chap, for making this, getting the story out there, and thank you all for watching it. We hope that you found it as interesting as us and rewarding to know this. I feel rewarded to know of this gentleman and the other gentleman that received the Victoria Cross as well. On that note, we're out of here for today, but we'll see you back on Sunday. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, please love, like, jazz.
And be as strong as Tyson.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.